Brian, where's the new invention? I don't get it.
Watch this.
Brian, what are you doing?
There you are. 3 years of hard work.
A mechanical watchdog.
Computerized, self-activating mobile crime deterrent. Unlike any watchdog that ever existed.
Here he comes, and there he goes. Chomps, the world's greatest watchdog.
His victims died screaming, but for the one still alive, the worst was yet to come. The Toolbox Murders, a true story. When you stop screaming, you'll start talking about it.
Like sands through the hourglass, so are the days of our lives.
Marshall, Will, and Holly on the routine expedition met the greatest earthquake ever known. High on the rapids, it struck their tiny raft and plunged them down 1,000 feet below to the land of the lost. Come on, get out of here. Come on.
Dragon tales, it's almost time for dragon tales. Come along, take my hand, let's all go to Dragonland.
If you can find the myth hidden in this picture, then you can win a run through our prize-filled house where what you find is what you keep on Finders Keepers. And now, here's the host of Finders Keepers, the man with the hidden talent, Wesley Eure.
Hi there. Good luck, everybody. Thank you, Joe, and welcome to Finders Keepers, the only show where every room is a rec room.
I think everyone had a crush on this man, this guy, when he was growing up, when I was growing up in the 70s, when we were all growing up in the 70s. You know, rewatching some of his show, Land of the Lost, it took me back in time and brought back so many fun memories. And of course, he played Dr. Michael William Horton in the legendary soap opera Days of Our Lives. He's an actor, a singer, a creator, an author. Wesley Eure. Hello.
Hey, how are you, David? Geez, I'm blushing. I feel so admired.
Well, you are.
Oh, I'm old. I'm old now.
Oh, please, please. I tell you, I can tell everybody when I get to be, 80 years old, I want to look exactly like Katharine Hepburn. So,
Well, you don't want to look like her now, for God's sakes.
Right? Oh, well, I was rewatching it, and it sucked me back into a timeline. I mean, starting off with Land of the Lost, because I mean, like I said, everyone that I know had a crush on you. The show was so much fun. And it felt like, I was watching the intro again today too, where you go down the waterfall, and I was going, I remember being in that boat with you.
Yes. Well, we do these autograph shows. Kathy, who played Holly, and Phil Paley played Chaka, and we bring a big yellow raft and put people in the yellow raft, yellow life jackets, yellow oars, and everybody goes, ah, like we're going over the waterfall.
Oh, God.
It's so much fun. But it was Marshall, Will, and Holly on a routine expedition, met the greatest earthquake ever known. High on the rapids, it struck their tiny raft, plunged them down 1,000 feet below, to the land of the lost, to the land of the lost. And then Grumpy the dinosaur goes, roar. Oh, I got to sing that theme song, by the way. That was me singing. The theme songs and the exit songs. So it was fun. Yeah, when we do these shows, people go, "Could you not sing the song anymore? Could you please just not sing that?"
No, I want you to sing it I want you to put it on my alarm clock, so when I wake up to you singing it.
Oh my God! I was lucky. I was doing. I got Days of Our Lives first, playing Mike Horton, and then
you got that first.
Yeah, and they were both NBC shows, so NBC let me do both series. So for 3 years, I got to film all of my scenes on Days of Our Lives in the morning, because the cast hated me, because I went in the morning, got my scenes shot, and then I headed over to Goldwood Studios in the afternoon to film Land of the Lost. So in the morning, I'm crying that my girlfriend is leaving me and that the mafia is after me and I'm having these sexual problems. And in the afternoon, I'm going, run, Holly, run. There's a dinosaur. It was, I had the best job. I had very, very heady time for me, I must say. So it was great having 2 shows.
It's amazing. And work, though. I mean, you have all those scripts to get into here.
Yeah, well, you know what? It's funny because the soap. I didn't know how when I first started on Days of Our Lives, and I didn't know how I'd learn these lines. I mean, we went to an hour show after the first few months I was on the show, and sometimes I'd have 30 pages of dialogue in one day. 30 pages, 30, count them, 30, and in some days you'd have 1 page.
Yeah,
but it's like a muscle. It was bizarre. I mean, you teach and you talk about acting and stuff like that. So, but it's the more we use that muscle, I could go in the morning and not read the script in the evening, go into Days of Our Lives, open the script in the morning and memorize all my lines by run through.
Wow.
So, and not use the cue cards.
Wow.
And in fact, I hear Days of Our Lives doesn't use cue cards anymore, so they won't let anybody. I mean, it's really sleeked down because they keep cutting and cutting and cutting and cutting because the viewership, of course, on soaps has dwindled because of the internet.
Yeah.
There's only I think 3 or 4 soaps left. They're all LA soaps now.
Wow. Yeah, I heard that. I watched a soap for a little time. What was it? Edge of Night. I would come home and watch that, and then of course Days of Our Lives, and but how fun! I knew that you were doing it. I read where you did both at the same time, but I didn't know. I mean, you were this young teenager, and then you were a doctor on the other show.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting because I was on Days, and David Merrick flew me to New York to star in Candide on Broadway. And I was going to replace the guy on Candide, and I flew to New York, and I'd auditioned for Land of the Lost, and I was 20, maybe 21, and I was playing 16 on Land of the Lost.
Yeah.
I looked young, So I got a phone call, said, "You got the show?" And I go, "I don't know if I want to play 16. I'm 21 and stuff." Thank God I said yes. I mean, listen, it has been the joy. We have more fun. And Land of the Lost was written by the top sci-fi writers. Because I know it looks hokey now because it was the 70s, the special effects. But the scripts were written by some of the most famous sci-fi writers at the beginning of their careers, like DC Fontana, David Gerald, who wrote Trouble with Triples. He was our head writer. Walter Koenig, who played the original Chekhov, created one of our main characters. I mean, it was crazy. Spinrad. So all these people that later on you could not have afforded them, but back in the day they were just beginning. So the scripts hold up. The sci-fi is really cool, even to this day. So
that's so interesting. You brought that up because Matthew Payne, one of our students at and one of the actors at Performing Arts Studio West, says, "Do you think that Land of the Lost influenced Jurassic Park?"
Absolutely. And what we do these autograph shows, and I didn't do them for years and years and years. And then finally, Kathy played Holly, said, come on. And then so the last few years I started to do them, and we've had the most remarkable experiences. We had two guys, this guy come to our table in Los Angeles at a show. He goes, "Let me tell you something. I thought as a kid you spoke Farsi." Because he lived in Iraq when it was Iraq. And he said, "You were dubbed into Farsi." And he said, "My brother and I used to watch Land of the Lost. We became so interested in science. We are now two heads of JPL, Jet Propulsion Lab." So he said, we want to give you a private tour of JPL. So Kathy and I went. We actually got to go. It was crazy. They let us in every door that you're not supposed to be in. We went to this one room, and it's huge, and all these computer banks, and nobody there except one lone guy in the corner playing with the joystick. And it's the guy that was flying driving the Mars rovers.
Oh, wow.
And we went into the room where he was, and he said, "You want to drive the Mars rover?" I go, "Yes." Because, today's the big day. The helicopter flew on Mars. Yeah. So we go into this thing, and he lets us play with the joystick. Now, to be fair, it doesn't actually move it on Mars immediately. Yeah. What they do is they program it, and it takes 8 hours to send the signal the next night, and then the Mars rover moves. So, but he just let us play with it. He had a driver's license for every rover that had ever been on Mars. But it's amazing how many people will come. They become archaeologists, and they become scientists, sci-fi writers. So many. It affected a lot of people's lives. And because remember, it was like, in the 70s, Saturday morning was for kids. Yeah. There was no, when the show aired, that was it. If you missed it, you missed it. You couldn't, there's no taping it or anything like that. So all the kids are sitting in front of the Land of the Lost, watching with their bowl of Cheerios or their, Captain Crunch. And it really affected a lot of people, and it's amazing. We've had people come up to our table. I remember one guy, he was in his 50s, and he said, "Listen," he's crying. He said, "I got to tell you, I know it's going to sound weird, but going into the third season, we lost our dad, contractual problems, money. And we had an uncle come in, and he said, my dad and my mom were splitting up." Yeah. He said, "I think I could handle it." He said, I didn't know how to do it, but I was watching Land of the Lost, and your dad left, your uncle came in, and the family survived." And he said, "I'm going to tell you, it gave me the strength to understand that life could go on as a little bitty kid." So you never know what we do as performers, because we just put it out there in the ethers. We don't think about it, most of us, and how the ripple effect that it can have. It's extraordinary. As more people tell us stories that
it's
like
such a good lesson what you just said about that, because you think about projects that you are either creating, and then they get a snag, and then you have to move a different way with it, and so it makes you think, oh, maybe this is the way it's supposed to go, or suppose is a strange word sometimes, but wow,
the power of the media. We forget sometimes, especially back when there was so limited. There were only 3 networks, so everybody who was watching TV was probably at least a third of them watching your show, whatever the show was. But the power we forget, and it's permanent if it continues. Land of the Lost is still on. It keeps airing all over these these different stations. We have new viewers all the time, but you forget the effect that it can have long term on people's lives. I've had that happen a lot in my career, and it's been, I was one of the creators of Dragon Tales for PBS.
Yes.
Series.
Now, how did you come up with that? What made you want to do that?
Well, I had been producing, segment producing, and actually casting myself in a totally hidden video for Fox, a hidden camera show.
Right.
So I did that. I would write the episodes, I would produce the episodes, and I would cast myself. So I got the biggest check I got was the union, the actors union, because the other thing they just you're not a writer, you're a segment producer. And I left to do a musical up in Canada, and the executive producer moved on to Sony.
Yeah.
I'd written a book that Disney bought for an animated feature, and I wrote the screenplay and the songs for Disney. And it's called The Red Wings of Christmas. And his son, Max, his favorite book was The Red Wings of Christmas. So Jim Cohen calls me and said, hey, look, I've got this. There's a $16 million grant being offered by the government for a new kids show. The Muppets want it. Sesame Street wants it. Everybody. I've got these dragon drawings. Can you come help me put this together? And I did. I finished it up, put it together in 3 days, and we sold it over the weekend. We beat out everybody from Sesame to everybody. And but it's all and we named there's a boy and girl in it, and one of the boys' name is Max, named after Jim's son, and Max and Emmy. And I think Jennifer Lopez named her kids after Max and Emmy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, back in the day. So I think that's what I'm told. I mean, they're named Max and Emmys, but I'm told that was the reason. But yeah, but I'm just saying that ripple effect. I have kids come up to me, especially kids on the spectrum.
Yeah. Yeah.
And will come up and can sing every song from the show and know everything about it. And we'll sit and talk for a long time. And it's the ripple effect of what you do, So there's an obligation for all of us as writers and directors and producers, actors, whatever, all of us, even behind the makeup, everybody that works on in this media. I think we sometimes forget the power of the images and the sounds, and it's nice to be reminded every once in a while.
Well, and like you said, how it affects people. I mentioned this morning during acting class, I popped my head in on another class and just to say, hey, I'm checking in and I'm interviewing Wesley Eure today. And one of our students said, Mark Wells said, oh my God, he's the host of Finders Keepers. And it was like,
find it. Listen, I wanted to be a game show host forever. I still do. And I did a couple pilots for NBC, one called Pot of Gold back in the day. But I was a guest star on a lot of this is me. I'll just keep name dropping and just let me know when I've done enough. But I was so lucky. I was like, I know it's crazy, David. Sometimes you listen to yourself talking, you go, who the hell do you think you are? Listen, I was raised in Hattiesburg, Mississippi. My family were educators.
Yeah.
They had nothing to do with entertainment. They thought I was nuts. They really thought. And so, I mean, I'm like this kid from Mississippi, and I look around and go, how the hell did I get here? I mean, this is crazy.
My mom was born in Mississippi.
Hattiesburg is where I was raised.
She was in Jackson. But...
That's where my mom was born. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Do we have the same mom?
Huh?
Brother! Oh my gosh. But
I game shows where I loved them. I was a regular, pretty much a regular on Password with Alan Ludden, and I did Match Game as a guest star, and I did all the game shows back in the day. Yeah. And I loved it. And I finally got my own show on Nickelodeon called Finders Keepers. And it was opposite Double Dare with Mark Summers hosting. And it was extraordinary. We did 2 seasons, and it was just amazing. And to this day, and there's nothing more fun because it's like guerrilla theater. It's live. It's happening, and it's real, and there's people winning prizes and money. And I remember I used to play a lot with Elizabeth Montgomery. She and I would be paired off a lot.
Okay.
And in fact, when I started Password, I was in my early 20s, and I thought, okay, I love Passwords, and I'd watch it. I said, please don't put me up against Elizabeth Montgomery because she's the toughest player. So I drive into NBC Burbank, and they've given me Johnny Carson's parking spot. My name is on his parking spot from the Tonight Show. I go, oh my God. You know, so I pull in and it says, Wesley Eure. And then right next to me goes, Elizabeth Montgomery. And I go, oh, no. So we filmed the first, we shot 5 days, 5 shows in a row, in one day for the week. And she was tough. She was a tough one. And they kept pitting us against each other because we like to win. And I feel very honored I got to play with Betty White, and I got to teach Lucille Ball how to play password alphabetics for password. They asked me to teach her. They came into my dressing room one day. I was about to film 5 more episodes with somebody, right. And I think it was Vicki Lawrence. I think and I were doing the show that day. Yeah. And they said, Wesley, listen, would you mind teaching Lucille Ball how to play alphabetics, which was the end game of Password? She's played Password when it was black and white, but she never played this fast end game. And I said, are you crazy? Lucille Ball? I'll play with Lucille Ball. So I hung up the phone, and we were in Burbank, and my mother lived in Burbank because Days of Our Lives was in Burbank. I had a couple of houses there. And I called my mother and said, Mom, what are you doing today? She goes, nothing. I go, want to spend the day with Lucille Ball? She goes, yeah. So 10 minutes, she was at NBC Burbank, and she and my mom sat in my dressing room the whole day. We shot 5 episodes. I would come and dress. While Lucy was there, I took my clothes off and put my clothes on. And we'd talk about how the game worked and the clues we did and how it all worked. And I ran into Lucy Arnaz, her daughter, a couple of years ago. She lives here in Palm Springs. Right. And I said, I got to teach your mother how to play alphabetics. She goes, well, you did a good job. So,
I love that. Now, you were talking about when you were younger, how young were you when you knew I've got to get into this? I love acting.
5 years old.
Really? What was
I stood up on a table in Mississippi and go, I'm going to be an actor. And then you went, you are creepy.
Oh, no.
But you know what I think it was? I mean, to be serious, I mean, my dad left when I was 2. He just abandoned us. He was a professor, and he left us and never came back. And I think I think we're attracted to fields that somehow feed a part of us. And I was raised with all women, and I think I needed the attention. Just to call it what it is, I think I was starving for some kind of acknowledgement. And I think that's part of the reason I really wanted to be an actor. I wanted to be special. I wanted people to want me and stuff. And I found out later in life, my dad used to watch me on Days of Our Lives and brag that I was his son, but he didn't contact me.
He never contacted you.
I met him twice back at the end of my teens, and he passed away. Anyway, it was just, we all have our stories. We all have our ups and downs in our family stuff and things like that. But I think that's part of the reason that there's a motivation for this little kid from Mississippi to want to, do what I do.
Now, how long did you, going back to Mississippi, how long were you in Mississippi before you moved out to Hollywood?
Well, my mother, because she got a divorce, she went back to get her doctorate degree, psychology. So I lived with my grandmother in Hattiesburg, and then we moved to Denton, Texas, where my mother was a professor at Texas Woman's University for a couple of years. We moved to Illinois. She was at Southern Illinois University teaching graduate statistics, counseling. And then we moved to Las Vegas. She was heading up the drug abuse program for the state of Nevada when I was 16. And so I pursued my last year of high school in Nevada, my first year at UNLV, and I met Robert Goulet and Carol Lawrence. I was selling artwork after school at the Desert Inn Hotel, and they needed someone to drive their motorhome in New York for the summer for the Goober Gross Circuit, the Bob Goulet Show with Carol Lawrence. And I'm 17 years old. And they said, we want you to come. They thought I was funny. And they would come to the art gallery. Well, Bob would come to the art gallery in the hotel, and David Leland, who was his manager. So they flew me to New York. I'd never been to New York City. I mean, I'm this little, I've never been to a big city like that.
Right.
And I go, and we go to New Jersey, the Garden State Art Festival where Carol was performing.
Right.
And the first thing they said to me is, Wesley, you're driving Miss Lawrence to New York to her dentist. I'm 17. I've never been to New York City. I am now driving Carol Lawrence, who's a major star at this point in her life.
Yeah.
And I'm 17 years old. And I get her in the back seat with David Leland next to me, and I go through the Lincoln Tunnel, and I am like, it's like the Wizard of Oz. I have no idea what is going on. And I drive under the tunnel and get into Manhattan, and there's all these trucks parked on the street. And I'm going into an intersection. The very first one I come to, I pull out the intersection. I see there's a stoplight over here on the right-hand side, hidden behind the truck. So I back up, and a policeman goes, "Roll down your window." And I'm going, "Oh, I'm with Carol Lawrence." He goes, "Young man, just see it's a red light." I go, "Oh yeah, listen. I where I come from, the lights are in the middle of the street, not on the side. There was a truck parking. I couldn't see it." And he looked down on the dashboard. It said the Garden State Art Festival. He looked in the bag, goes, "Oh, hello, Miss Lawrence. Young man, be careful." I go, "Okay, I want to be that. I want to be a star."
Oh wow. So, yeah, right.
Yeah. So, but
what is one of your biggest joys in life?
oh my God, my friends. You know, listen, I am so grateful. I feel like I'm just, I'm a lucky guy. Not the luckiest guy, but a lucky guy. And I don't take it for granted. I know what I have. And even like the pandemic has been going on, and the fact that I could sit at home, have a nice, comfortable place to stay, have food, have, still work. I just live in gratitude. I'm just really, I get what I got.
Right. Yeah. Gosh. Well, I tell you, I can't wait to get out to Palm Springs one of these days. I finally got my hair cut yesterday.
Very nice.
Thank you. I had a ponytail.
And it's nice and trim on the back. I like that. It's like, yeah, because I just did this yesterday with my razor.
Did you?
I haven't ventured out yet.
Did you have your shots?
I do. I just got them. I mean, I'm fully vaccinated now. I'm actually having my first coffee date distancing tomorrow.
Yeah.
Well, listen, speaking of people that have a great life, you have a great life. I mean, look at all the stuff. I before we did this course, I had to go on IMDb and I have to check, but all the things that you've cast and been part of, and as as a performer, and as the direct, I mean, the whole thing, the teaching and the directing, everything that you've done in your life, it's extraordinary. I mean, and the fact that you just said to me, "Oh yeah, well, I just stopped into the acting class today." I mean, the fact that it continues, that there's we know a lot of people that don't have that blessing that things have kept going in their lives.
It's true.
So, but you're amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. I just don't think about it a lot. I just do it. And I was blessed to come to LA and find a wonderful extended family. Because of course you could come to LA and get in with the wrong crowd, one way or the other, but real people, real loving people. And it's this community too, which, if you want to like dissect it, I mean, no, it's not necessarily the disability community, but I turned around and my dad had passed, and I was, and some of my aunts and uncles had passed, and I was going, my family is leaving me, and I don't know if I'm going to have any family. And I turned around, opened the door of one of my acting classes, and Jerry Jewell walks in the room, and right away we clicked, and it was like, oh, my family, so it's not, people will say, oh, it's so nice you work with actors with disabilities and this and that. And I don't see that. I see Angela, I see Jerry, I see, all these wonderful friends. So thank you for bringing that up, because
it's really interesting. It's interesting that you gravitated towards that, and why that resonated with you. Did you have a history? Was there anybody in your family that had a lot of challenges that maybe that spurred you and gave you some sort of different compassion or different way of looking at stuff?
My dad did have a lot of issues. I mean, he had like 3 hip replacements, or I don't know, it was 3 or 5.
Wow.
bone marrow transplant, this, that, so many different issues that we won't go into, but I always felt close. I had wonderful parents, and my mom's still here. She just turned 95.
Wow.
So, and that's where finally during Thanksgiving, after being 9 months in the pandemic, I went, I think I'm going to like put stuff in storage and be with mom and my brother for a while. So that's what I did.
Probably.
But that got away from your question. Now it's like it's interesting how you turned and asked me.
No, but it's interesting. But it is interesting because you do work with people with different challenges in that community and stuff. We have some mutual friends that are part of that community, and I think it's extraordinary. And I have another friend, Catherine. She's a casting in the Midwest, and she deals with Down syndrome kids a lot, and casting and putting them in movies and commercials and things like that. And first of all, how wonderful that the tide has turned, and that they're finally people have their faces on TV and commercials and stuff, and it's being celebrated because it's always been a part of our lives. It's I mean, I'm not trying to proselytize or anything, but we're very lucky that things are moving forward, and that everybody is getting a shot at being a face and being seen. All of us, everybody, with whatever's going on in your life.
And I think it's I'm hearing what you're saying too, and all about the inclusion. And I think as we move forward, we have that. That's why we're going through such a stage in our during this time where there's a lot of trying to bring it back, but trying to move forward. But the thing is, if it's from the heart and it's connecting, it's going to get there.
Can I ask you? I don't know if you can answer this or not, but is there one particular performer that got something that you really worked for that was a surprise, that a disabled performer made a headway into a role that wasn't necessarily expected to be a disabled, wasn't written as a disabled performer? Has that ever have you ever had that breakthrough?
Gosh, that's a good question. Beat the Miz with Wesley Eure. I know, I love it. I think of different people. The person that I was really proud of. I grew up loving the Hoffmans, the Streisands, Peter Sellers. I grew up with all, I had little Hot Wheels that, this is Raquel Welch's car, when I was 5, 6 years old. As I grew up, my viewpoint changed. And Jamie Brewer from American Horror Story,
sure.
When I saw that she was in that, I was like, something shifted in me. And I had seen other actors. I mean, I knew that Jerry was, in this show and that show. But again, I didn't think of it, again, in terms of disability. But to see Jamie Brewer get out there and just nail these and do such a wonderful job. And then on Broadway, I got to sit in the second row when she was on that stage. And I went there for a week. I had business, plus I got to see 3 plays, and I saw her play twice because I sat there in the second row, and there she was, the lead of the show, and I just bawled because it was such joy. So
Jerry Jewell was my first exposure, I think, at watching a disabled performer being cast in a major role. I mean, a recurring role on a major sitcom, and she's extraordinary. And it is amazing how slowly, even Glee, I mean, all that stuff that we're suddenly, it's about time is all I can say. It's just really about time.
Well, I know that one of these days when we do open at Performing Arts, the students would love to visit with you.
I'd love to, yeah.
If you're in town and this and that, but because the way they were going, oh, Wesley Eure, I mean, there's 100 students in the class, and it's just, it's so.
I do a lot of lectures at schools.
Do you?
Yeah, a lot. I lectured to 950 kids in a day a year ago at one of the schools. You know, kids have always been a part of my life. I mean, listen, Saturday morning show, Dragon Tales. I write kids' books. I have kids' books out. Disney bought one of them. You know, it's all I don't. I you know I think I definitely have that Peter Pan syndrome for myself, and but it's always been important to me. It's just always, you know, I just relate to it. You know, maybe I just relate, but it has been a motivation in my life, and so I'm fascinated with what you do and the opportunities that you are affording so many people that normally wouldn't have even dreamed of having that opportunity. And I think the dreams, I think, are so powerful. You know, whether you get the job or not, the role or whatever, but to have that dream and that desire to go for it and know that you can go for it, whether you get it or not. And that in itself, I think, is an extraordinary experience.
Yeah. And there's so many students right now that are just nailing those auditions. And every time, you know, we're having more and more auditions through Performing Arts Studio West, where I'm so blessed to be working right now. I started the Meet the Biz program years ago. And then, thank God, I, you know, walked into John Pace's Performing Arts Studio West and said, wow, and became a part of that. I took Meet the Biz all around. From Joey Travolta's Inclusion Films and it started with Mary Rings at Born to Act Players, but you know, again, it's that the family keeps growing, and it's the family is humanity. It's this love of each other. And you have so many, I mean, it's interesting how many friends that we have in common too.
A lot, from Roberta Kent to Kathy Buckley to, I mean, tons of mutual friends.
Yeah. Where did you first meet Roberta?
Oh my God, I can't even remember, to be honest with you. I asked Roberta the other day. I mean, she's a stand-up comic. She's fabulous.
Right.
And I can't remember, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting when that happens too. It's like you seem like you know somebody for so long.
I know. And I certainly hope I never have to see Roberta Kent again, because if I ever have to look at her face, talk to Roberta Kent again, I think I want to just say that I am over Roberta Kent. I never, ever, ever want to speak to her again.
You know, you told me this was going to be Brad Pitt. What's this shit?